A week's a long time in politics.
A day is a long time. McGowan pulls the pin. Roger Cook fights off a weirdly low-key leadership challenge by Health Minister Amber Jade Sanderson.
Look, I'm just trying to walk the dog and now I've lost her.
And now here we are today with Sanderson pledging her undying support to the man set to become WA's 31st Premier. When it comes to believability, political support ranks somewhere between fealty in Game of Thrones.
All rulers demand that people bend the knee. That's why they're rulers.
And loyalty in the Roy family.
Yeah, I mean...
You think he would send poisoned donuts to the house of his grandchildren?
No, I'm like 98% sure those are not poisoned.
But let's be honest, Sanderson doesn't have much choice but to kiss the ring.
Good.
Rog put on a masterclass this week, and now the only road back to the promised land for Sanderson is hoping her own party becomes such a dumpster fire that the Labor caucus has the appetite for a leadership spill. Of course, that'll depend a lot on what the new bloke does in the top job.
And what do you reckon that will be?
Good question. Well, it can't be doing a bad impersonation of Mark McGowan, because that won't fly with voters. Cook has to chart his own course, and there are some things I want to see him do if he wants my allegiance.
Well, in case he's watching, go on, give us your top three.
Well, firstly, let's start with Banksia Hill. Cook's comments in his first presser as presumptive Premier didn't go unnoticed.
Look, I've got my own views on Banksia Hill.
And they can't be any worse than his predecessors.
It's a form of terrorism they're engaged in.
You see, Cook knows better than most how youth detention disproportionately impacts Indigenous kids, so I'd expect him to bring that to any policy position around Banksia Hill.
And number two?
Cook's a smart and thoughtful guy, and you can't always say that about politicians.
It's so great to be part of your feel-good moment.
You're a dirty little prick.
So I reckon that'll influence his decisions on the housing crisis and cost of living. So let's see that in action to tackle problems impacting West Aussie families. And the third thing I'd like to see from him is finally fixing the health system. That didn't go so well for him last time, and honestly, every state in Australia hasn't been able to do it. But now as Premier, he knows what the issues are and has some real weight to throw at it. So use that tourism hat of his to get more medical professionals into WA and get his likely Treasurer and new Deputy, Rita Safiotti, to pay them more.
Maybe he should get AI in his radar.
It's becoming a big issue, and Albo's realised it. Better late than never. Earlier this week, a bunch of AI experts, including the bloke who created ChatGPT, wrote an open letter warning that the technology could lead to our extinction. Whoops! Does anyone else think these dickheads should have thought of that a little sooner? Like, before they released the tech to the public.
Made a huge mistake.
But doomsday predictions are nothing new. Most cultures have their own version of the apocalypse, and it usually comes with a bunch of convenient signs that are pretty hard to miss. Earthquakes, trees sweating blood, and in medieval Europe, something called the papal ass. This is not to be confused with the arse the Pope's Instagram account liked in 2020. That's a sign of the times, not the end times. When it comes to artificial intelligence, the signs of the apocalypse might be a little harder to spot, but the Centre for AI Safety lists 8 ways that tech could pose an existential threat to humanity. They include weaponisation. We've all seen the Terminator. AI gets control of the nukes and it's game over. But did you see scientists have just used AI to discover new drugs to treat antibiotic-resistant superbugs? That's nice, but guess what? AI could just as easily engineer biological weapons. Bet you didn't think of that when you used ChatGPT to write your resume.
You're judging me on things I haven't even done yet.
Unfortunately, unlike Sarah Connor, we can't stop this with a few chin-ups. So Federal Industry and Science Minister Ed Husic revealed Albo's mob was considering a ban on high-risk AI uses.
The concerns seem quite legit.
Yeah. Well, there's deepfakes. There was a great example of it in India this week. For those who came in late, India's Olympic wrestlers are getting arrested for protesting alleged sexual abuse by the sports hierarchy. Then this image went viral. They don't look that upset, right? Well, it's actually a deepfake. This is the original. No smiles there.
It's incredible. Well, tech has come so far so quickly.
Yeah. Last year, a deepfake appeared showing Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky telling his soldiers to lay down their weapons. It might be a more obvious fake, but it's also more serious, with more serious consequences if people think it's real. And a distracted punter looking at their phone might just do that.
Who isn't distracted looking at their phone?
That's a good point. What the government wants to stop is people using AI to make deep fakes. It's a noble task, don't get me wrong, but when AI is being compared to a nuclear holocaust by the people who created it, stamping out deepfakes is like regulating nukes by starting with what colour they're painted. The deepfakes I mentioned earlier were generated from human prompts. What happens if AI starts doing their own to manipulate us?
We're screwed, aren't we?
Government legislation will be pretty useless then. So why are we so far behind the 8 ball on this issue? Well, as much as the feds are clutching their pearls over generative AI, they're also dreaming of all the new pearl necklaces they could buy with the trillions of dollars the tech will be worth in the short term. You know, before this happens. I'm Ben O'Shea.
For more Up Late, click the subscribe button below.